Good evening. Welcome to the RSU 5 Board of Directors meeting. It is Wednesday, February 16th, 2022, and we are here at the Freeport High School cafeteria. We have a full board this evening, and we will get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, just because we do have some new folks, just a little bit of process. We will have an opportunity for public comment, a few items down on our agenda, and we'll give some more details around that when we get there. But just so you know, that's coming up. That is number 7 on our agenda. So do I have a motion for consideration and approval of the minutes from the February 2nd, 2022 meeting as presented, barring any errors or omissions? Maddie and Susanna, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, great, thanks. Adjustments to the agenda?
No adjustments.
Okay, so we will move on to good news and recognition. We have a report from our board student rep, Brady.
All right, so winter sports are hitting their peak right now at the high school with playoffs starting in all sports. The boys basketball team lost by 1 point last night to Biddeford, and then the girls are actually playing right now against Biddeford in our gym. They were down by 6 at halftime, I just saw. The boys swim team placed 6th, and the girls finished 10th at the Southwestern Swimming Championship, with Brian Brogan getting 1st in both the 50 and 100-yard freestyle. The Nordic team girls got 5th, and the boys got 2nd in both skate and combined pursuit for Nordic, with Sam Robinson winning the combined pursuit at WMCs. And then finally, the school is very excited for February break next week.
I am sure. Okay, so we quickly got into the public comment period on our agenda. Just some ground rules. We asked for folks, if you'd like to speak, that you come up to the microphone, give us your name, tell us where you live, and share your thoughts with the board. We have a lot of people here, so we are going to be very strict with the 3-minute timelines. Every individual gets a 3-minute block. No sharing time, just everyone gets 3 minutes. And hopefully we can get through everyone who'd like to speak. Does no one want to speak? Oh. Perfect. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Allen. I live in Durham, Maine. I have a 2nd grader named Miles that attends Durham Community School. I just have one ask of everyone that's in the audience. I'd like everyone who supports choice to please pull your mask down, smile, and look at the parents and the children and everyone around you. Thank you. How did that feel? I feel rejuvenated, safe, excited, and confident. According to Henry Ford Health System studies, a child smiles an average of 400 times a day. 400 times. Wouldn't it be amazing to let our children share those smiles? Smiling offers a boost of positivity, reduces blood pressure, reduces stress, and I find that when I smile, I feel happy, positive, and accepted. Smiles are important at school and in the classroom as it builds confidence, can put students at ease, builds rapport, and overall, it's crucial to a safe, successful environment. Smiles are contagious. My smile doesn't just impact me, but it impacts everyone in this room. Smiles boost the mood of others, provides reassurance of acceptance, brightens others' days, and helps us form relationships and cultivate positivity. Dale Carnegie, the author of How to Win Friends and Influence People, once said, "The expression one wears on one's face is far more important than the clothes one wears on one's back." As I like to say, the expression one wears on one's face is far more important than the mask we wear on our faces. We, the parents and the children, support choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Hello,
Hello, my name is Miles and I'm a second grader. I participate in Durham Community School. The masks don't even work and we're not even able to wear gaiters. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miles.
Hi, my name's Jackie. I'm from Freeport. Tonight I'm here to share some crucial information with you in regards to the American Rescue Plan ESSER Fund application that was submitted by Superintendent Foley on behalf of RSU 5. This federal grant indicated 31 times in its instructional appendix that superintendents, before creating a safe return to school plan, were required to have, quote, meaningful consultation with stakeholders in regards to the requirements for 9 key points, including universal masking and isolation. In the interest of time, I can't breathe the thumb. In the interest of time, here is one example where it's mentioned. Funding is to be used, quote, to promote healthy and safe learning environments and support students' social, emotional, mental health, and academic needs, making evidence-based, equity-driven ARP ESSER spending decisions by engaging a diverse range of stakeholders, including students, families, and educators. In each of these 31 sections, students and families are listed first as stakeholders required for meaningful consultation. Superintendent Foley made the decision to be above the federal government when she created our return to school plan. She decided that she didn't have to follow protocol and have meaningful consultation with parents and students, who are considered valued stakeholders in the very definition of the grant. Not only was there no survey or Q&A opportunities given to parents before the plan was created, I also have an email response here from Becky to a parent inquiring about universal masking and why parents weren't polled. This was Becky's response. Quote, I poll parents when I feel there's an option, or I'm trying to prepare for programming. I do not poll parents when I believe their vote is going to create more division or that it's not an appropriate thing to poll them about. This falls into not an appropriate question to ask them about. This confirms that Becky intentionally disregarded the very explicit directions for this return to school plan when she decided we were not an appropriate group of individuals. We acknowledge that these have been tough times for us all to navigate, but to explicitly ignore key stakeholders because they may challenge the narrative is not the right way to lead our public schools and oversee the health and wellness of our children. Without parents, you have no students. Without students, you have no schools. So we are an integral part of the stakeholder group, and there was good reason to include us in the requirement. As a superintendent and board of directors, you are members serving the best interest of your district. The opinions from public stakeholders should hold tremendous weight on your decision. The detrimental effects on the health and wellness of our students from district-enforced policies proven by factual, peer-reviewed, and well-respected sources should hold tremendous weight on your decisions. Money and funding from the government should be secondary to all of that. And yet our superintendent put full federal grant dollars above our students. If Superintendent Foley would have polled the parents and students, she would have seen what we're seeing on a petition that I will gladly share with you, showing over 750 parents and students against these mandates gathered in a few short days. With this, we ask you to immediately lift the mandates in schools and never bring them back.
Thank you, Jackie.
Good evening, board members and guests. My name is Jess, and I have a son in the 6th grade at DCS.
Can we just get, I'm sorry, can we get full names because we
Jess
tracked?
Gabbard.
Thank you.
Dane, my son, loves his school. He's very smart, gets wonderful grades, and is strong in his abilities. You may remember that he spoke at the board meeting in 2020, which was held by Zoom, in favor of returning to school rather than continuing remote learning because he had a hard time concentrating at home with his toys and dog and missed the interaction with his peers and friends. I received an email from Will Pitton commending him not only on his ability to speak, but his clarity and bravery. When I talk to friends about DCS, I talk about things that make our school wonderful. We are on the leading edge of energy sustainability with the geothermal HVAC system, a daylight harvesting system, and solar thermal panels. DCS is also frontrunner of science and technology with audio-enhanced classrooms and interactive whiteboards. DCS is also a leader in teaching respect, empathy, and inclusivity. I see the results of those core values in children at this school. When I talk about Freeport High School, I'm proud of the planning, work, and funds that were put into the Joan Benoit Samuelson track. I believe our own board member, Michelle, did a lap on that track with her. I know that one day soon my son will be on that very track, and that makes me excited for him and for all of his friends. But what I really want to tell people about Above and beyond all of this is how my school dares to be a leader of change in this state. Not only a leader, but the leader in putting the decisions of our children back into the hands of parents by making the mask mandate optional. As you all know, Maine has no mandate for schools. It's instead left up to individual districts. As a believer in all that you've done and continue to do for my son's school and for this district, I want to continue to believe that you will put equal effort into removing this mandate immediately. My son Dane will be speaking tonight, and he's going to tell you why the need for optional masking is needed. As a parent, feeling helpless, angry, and frustrated, I'm asking you to please listen, not only with your ears, but your hearts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jess.
My name is Dane Gabbard, and I go to Durham Community School. I have an inhaler for asthma, and I've had to leave school multiple times because I can't breathe after recess. I even had to leave today. If you run a marathon and you're out of breath and you can't breathe and you need the oxygen thing, and that's over an hour, and you go outside for 20 minutes and you need just the same amount of help, that's not right. And I've had to leave 2 times this week, and it's only a Wednesday. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
My name is Cole Bowditch. I'm a 6th grader at Durham Community School. I love to play hockey, but I chose to skip my hockey practice tonight to come here. And I never skip practice for anything. But let me ask you a question. Do you know what it's like to wear a mask all day, every day at school? Well, let me tell you what it's like to be a student. It's hard to breathe. All day I breathe hot air in a wet mask. I get headaches from wearing a mask. It's hard to do my work because I can't see people's faces. People interact with others by seeing their faces. Teachers say they know what it's like, but they really don't. Their lungs are fully developed. We are still growing. I just want to be a kid with an option to not wear a mask. Is that too much to ask?
Thank you, Cole.
My name is Wes Bowditch. I'm 2nd grade at DCS. Make math optional.
Good job, Wes.
My name is Shannon Fitzpatrick, and I'm the parent of Liam and Lachlan Fitzpatrick, students at Durham Community School. All over the country, we are seeing states lift the mask mandate in schools. Today, I spoke with a parent in Central Illinois who successfully found that the mandated policy imposed by the school was not backed by the law. This issue was brought to the courts, and this month, a temporary restraining order was put in place against the school, resulting in 535 school districts out of 850 going free. Tonight, I'm asking you, does the mask mandate you have required have the legal statutes to back them up? I can guarantee you, myself and these parents behind me will not stop fighting until this mandate and the masks are off our children. Last week, in an NBC News article about the effectiveness of mask protection, Dr. Isaac Bogach, an infectious disease physician out of Toronto, stated, "I know it sounds painfully obvious. You can have the best quality masks. However, if you are removing it for prolonged periods of time in indoor spaces, for example, to eat lunch, it's not going to provide significant protection." So, in addition to the children being the least harmed by this virus, the masks they are being forced to wear for 8 hours a day are providing little to no protection to them due to the regular removal of their masks during lunch, snack time, and even class parties. The masks are also negatively impacting our children's learning ability and social interactions. My 6-year-old son, Lachlan, is proof of this. This is his 2nd year in kindergarten, and while he is excelling in most areas, the one area he cannot meet the standards in is phonics. I wonder why this could be. Possibly because he and his teacher are wearing masks when the learning of words and reading of books is taking place. So let's end this nonsense. Give the parents the choice to send their children to school with or without masks. This leads me to my next point. Since it doesn't seem like the school board is interested in the parents' opinion, I took it upon myself to reach out to parents with a survey. The teacher shared a parent connection worksheet, and parents voluntarily provided their information. The size might be small, but it still allowed me to see how parents felt on the matter. Out of 43 participants, these were my findings. 79% answered no to the question, do you want your child wearing a mask in school? 77% answered yes to the question, should the decision to mask your child be left up to the parents? 72% answered yes to the question, do you believe the mask mandate has impeded or will impede your children's learning ability? Today, I'm urging you to remove the mask requirement and give parents the choice to do what they feel is best for their children, because clearly the requirements that have been put in place are not working.
Thank you, Sharon.
Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities.
I'm sorry, could you just tell us your name and where you're from?
Yes. That's my next point. I was just going to say that.
Oh, sorry.
You didn't say where to introduce yourself. But those are wise words from Voltaire. My name is AJ Fitzpatrick, and I have 2 boys at DCS. I'll start off by saying it was hard to hear that Camp Seaside is requiring children to be vaccinated. What's worse is I spoke to Peter Wagner, who told me he had COVID. He said he's fully vaccinated, and he still made the decision to require vaccinations in order to prevent the spread of COVID. I'll say that again. He's fully vaccinated, got COVID, and then mandated vaccines and masks to stop the spread of COVID. I'm vaccinated, I got COVID, I gave it to my whole family. So the vaccine clearly isn't doing what the CDC said it would, or what it said it wouldn't do, or whatever it said. So I want to rewind to last meeting. Someone over here asked a question about quarantine requirements without masking. Someone said they didn't know. I think someone over here said, I'm not sure, contact tracing. And then someone else came up and said, I'm pretty sure it's 5 days to quarantine, but you need to fill out a form. You need to get it notarized, you need a blood draw, do 25 jumping jacks, and you're good to go. So nobody really knows what the protocol is. Have you ever thought about the second and third order effects of masking our children? Imagine how it will impact the school and staff when young children develop learning disabilities due to hiding everybody's face. Speech therapy is already stressed due to lack of teachers and funding. So what's your plan to ensure me and other parents that their children will be taken care of when issues like speech, social emotional engagements, learning, and mental health issues arise? Last meeting, a guy stood up here. He had 30 years of experience wearing masks due to his job. And he stated the ones that we're wearing don't work. So 30 years of experience, I think that's worth taking note of. So RSU 5 and the CDC, your COVID policy is the CDC's. That's what I'm gathering. But when I go to the RSU 5 website, under COVID news and information, all I see are links to the CDC website, which, by the way, is trash. There's like 3 different pages saying 3 separate things. You know, it's no wonder that the CDC is contradicting itself. Real shocker. As of 13 January, though, the CDC does recommend, and I emphasize recommend, that children K through 12 wear masks, but you're requiring it. Why? Based on what information? What conclusive evidence do you have that says that the sullied, disgusting cloth masks our children are wearing prevent the spread of COVID? These mandates are a joke. It's about power and control. It's not 2020 anymore. There's no evidence to support masking works. Everyone has their head in the sand and is just blindly following directions so that they're not ostracized by the rest of the pack. Will you answer a question that I have? Are you allowed to answer questions? No. Okay. Well, you just answered that one, so I'll get one more out. What happens if students take their masks off or show up without them or refuse to put them on? What are you going to do? You're going to send them to the principal, kick them out, quarantine them, take them away from school for 5 or 10 or however many more days it is? You know, I just think, how's that going to feel on you all when you look back on your career and say, you know, I suspended this many kids because they want to put a mask on? So I challenge the leadership in this room right here to make the right decision about masking our children. You're messing with people's children. Like, parents are gonna fight tooth and nail for this, okay?
That's 3 minutes, so if you could wrap it up.
Wrapping it up. It's the parents' choice whether they want to do it or not, okay? Leave it to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, AJ.
I'm Craig Priestley from Freeport. I'm here with all these other parents fighting for our kids, fighting to end this ridiculous mask mandate and stop you from causing more harm to not only our kids, but the teachers as well. One thing I was pretty upset about last week were these principals asking to spend $250,000 of our taxpayers' money in order to get 3 speech therapists for pre-K and kindergarten kids due to an increase of speech impediments at this young age. I understand that kids may struggle at times with their speech and need that extra attention, but did you ever think that masks are causing this? The other day, my 3-year-old daughter was struggling to say yellow. She would say lelo, lelo. So what did I do? I taught her the Y sound, and guess how she learned? She watched my mouth move, and she corrected herself by seeing and hearing what I had to say. Kids can't see or hear what these teachers are saying with these masks on. They do not understand what is being said, and that's why these young kids are struggling with their speech. It's time to take off these masks and educate these kids the way they should be educated. We're all here for our kids to get a good education and succeed in life. Building a strong foundation at this age is key. Once you miss that opportunity to teach them at a young age, they're going to struggle throughout their whole schooling. And guess what that most likely leads to? Bullying. Not what I want, not what these parents want, and I'm sure that's not what you want. Look, you have one chance. You have the chance to be on the right side of history, make a positive impact in this town, in this state, in this country. What I want and all us parents want is for you to make a decision. Make a decision right now. Let's vote right now. Show us your hands. Show us of who of you actually care about the well-being of our children and who want to make a difference in the world. Because right now you're killing our children and you've lost my vote in future elections. Let's stop this right now.
Thank you, Craig.
My name is Chris. I'm from Durham. I have 4.
Would you mind sharing your last name? Because we track so we have a record of who spoke.
My name is Chris Polk.
Thank you.
I live in Durham. I have 4 grandchildren in the Durham-Freeport school system. I'm just here tonight to support all of these parents that have children in these schools and freedom of choice. I ask that you give parents back the choice to do what they believe is best for their children. It's long overdue. If a parent wants their child to wear a mask, it should be their choice. If a parent wants their child to breathe freely, smile and see others smile, and live a normal life, it should be their choice, no one else's. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Hi, my name is Raina Anderson, and I'm from Freeport. The fact that you didn't end the mask mandate immediately or even provide peer-reviewed studies supporting your mask policy means that you don't take us seriously. We've provided you the data. The CDC has openly said that masks don't provide protection. Dr. Shah came out and said there's no statewide mandate and it's up to the schools. Let me reiterate, the CDC provides recommendations. They do not make laws. You do not have to follow any of their recommendations. At this point, you are knowingly abusing these children. You are all complicit, every single one of you. Each and every one of you are responsible for the educational decline of our students throughout this district and the social and emotional harm you have forced upon our children. You are the ones doing this to our children. It is not any part of the government. It is each and every one of you. What are you going to do if and when you have a COVID case during your fully vaccinated summer camp? How are you going to explain that? It's clear that the vaccines don't work. It's clear that vaccinated individuals still contract COVID. It's clear that vaccinated individuals transmit COVID. Why are you forcing our littlest community members to take part in a trial that we still don't know the long-term effects of? You claim to have made this decision along with Peter, but we all know that is a lie, because Peter told many of us that he made this decision alone. Do not be on the side of political science. Instead, be on the side of real science. You know this is not the right thing to do. You all have the opportunity right now to stand up for us and make the decision to unmask our children. The fact that you are going against your core values and quite literally discriminating against certain people in this community for no reason is saddening. Take a step back and really look at what kind of atmosphere you're cultivating for a virus that has 99.9 survival rate. Remove the mask and vaccine mandates for everyone right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Hi, my name is Sadie Anderson, and I can't hear what my teacher is saying because of these masks, and it's really hard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Marissa Freeman, and I am from Durham, and I want our choice back. It's our choice to mask these kids or not yours.
Thank you, Marissa.
My name is Alyssa O'Brien, and I'm from Durham. I have 2 boys at DCS and a high schooler at FHS. The state of emergency has been lifted since June, thanks to Governor Janet Mills. I understand the decision that has been placed on Superintendent Foley and the school board. It weighs heavy on your shoulders. I will say it's far past the time in which you trust us as parents to make sound decisions for our own children when it comes to masking and also vaccinating. We have a high-risk child in the 4th grade at DCS. It is my job as his mother to keep his immune system boosted. I do not rely on other people to keep my child safe. That's my job. Proper hand washing and supplements have worked just fine for years. My husband, who is fully vaccinated, has had COVID. I've had COVID. Our kids have all had COVID. So I'm not the least bit worried about them getting it again. Any parent who is worried about their child getting it can send their kids to school in a hospital-grade N95 mask. The CDC has said cloth masks don't work. It's political theatrics and just cruel at this point. Enough. Quit hiding behind the main DOE recommendations. There is no sound scientific reason for it at this point. An increase in allowing masking to be optional across the U.S. has increased in the last 4 months from October until yesterday. It's gone from 25 to 40%. I'm going to repeat that. An increase in allowing masking to be optional in the U.S. has increased since October from 25 to 40%. That is a drastic increase in only 4 months. Be the change. Take a stand for our children today. Be courageous and bold. Make masks optional. Put an end to this mental health destroying practice. There is no longer a health or safety issue that rises to the level of mandatory masking. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Hi, my name's Jessica Conley. This is my husband, Brian. We have 2 little kids in Durham. Our oldest is in kindergarten at DCS. I have a few key points I'd like to discuss. First, with masks. Proper mask wearing is essential to the efficacy of wearing one. Cloth and surgical masks have gaps at least 40 times larger than a COVID molecule. Why are we mandating kids, or anyone for that matter, to wear masks when it literally does not stop a COVID molecule exiting the mask? I'll tell you why. It gives people a false sense of security and gives the impression that the CDC is in charge and knows what they're doing. Children need germs. That is how to build a strong immune system. These masks have been stunting their developing immune systems for over 2 years now. This is child abuse, and people are finally catching on in other states. It's our turn now. Next, COVID vaccination, especially in kids. Why is it any of the states' or schools' business if my child is vaccinated for COVID-19 when the vaccination does not prevent getting or transmitting the virus? The only thing the vaccine is being advertised as doing semi-effectively is reducing symptoms. For herd immunity to occur, experts are estimating between 70 and 90% of the population need to have gotten COVID or be vaccinated. Our district is over 90%. Therefore, this vaccine should not be required. Also, the idea of requiring an emergency use vaccine when there are significantly lacking details and data is unthinkable, especially with the amount of adverse events that have occurred after vaccination. Pfizer is fighting to withhold research that was used to qualify for the EU authorization and wants 70+ years to release this information to the public when they have the statistics at their fingertips. This doesn't sit right with me. I am not anti-vaccination, and I will not put a largely untested vaccine into my 5-year-old's body, especially not my 3-year-old's, when the vaccine poses more of a health risk to her than the virus it's supposed to be protecting her from. Learning delays and emotional harm. We've all seen the rise of depression in young children over the span of this pandemic. Isolation, covering faces, no human touch, and limiting activities is hurting our youth immensely. It is also causing learning delays and increased needs for special education. Our 5-year-old has needed speech therapy for the last 2 years due to difficulty pronouncing and enunciating words so as to be intelligible to others. I believe a large part of the reason for this is not being able to see her educators' mouths moving to form words, and not being able to hear clearly due to muffled sounds caused by the masks. I understand a large portion of the public is still wary of COVID-19. We've all been flooded with the news and scare tactics for over 2 years now. COVID has since mutated down to a highly transmissible cold. This archaic policy is missing school and daycare due to being exposed, not even actually having COVID, are ridiculous. These policies aren't just hurting our kids and delaying their education and development, but they're hurting the working class parents. How many weeks of work have we all had to miss staying home due to COVID guidelines? I'm sick and tired of the constantly moving hoops we have to jump through with the ever-looming threat of going back to remote learning if we don't comply or don't meet the CDC's mark. Enough is enough. It is high time that we move on with our lives and get back to living. Bring back the old sick policy, staying out when you're sick, returning after 24 hours of being symptom-free. Make masks and COVID vaccination a choice. And please, don't make further divisive rules to compensate for lifting the mandates. I firmly believe the parents know and will do what is best for their children and their own circumstances. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jessica.
Michael Clark, Durham. I just want to read a couple snippets from an article that was recently posted in the Atlantic. I emailed the full article to the whole board if you guys want to take a look at it. But it was written by three scientists. Unfortunately, the masks have become a right or left issue in this country. And those of you here probably know that the Atlantic is certainly not a right-wing media outlet, so I find this interesting. So they say, to justify mask requirements in school at this point, health officials should be able to muster solid evidence from randomized trials of masking in children. To date, however, only 2 randomized trials have measured the impacts of masks on COVID transmission. First was conducted in Denmark in the spring of 2020 and found no significant effect of masks on reducing COVID transmission. Second is a much-covered study conducted in Bangladesh that reported that surgical masks, but not cloth, were modestly effective at reducing rates of symptomatic infection. However, neither of these studies included children, let alone vaccinated children. In Tennessee, 2 neighboring counties with similar vaccination rates, Davidson and Williamson, have virtually overlapping case rate trends in their school-age populations, despite one having a mask mandate and one having a mask opt-out rate of about 23%. And lastly, recent prospective studies from Greece and Italy found evidence that masking is a barrier to speech recognition, hearing, and communication, and that masks impede children's ability to decode facial expressions, dampening children's perceived trustworthiness of faces. Research has also suggested that hearing-impaired children have difficulty discerning individual sounds. Opaque masks, of course, prevent lip reading. The foundation of medical and public health interventions should be that they work, not that we have sufficient evidence to say whether they are harmful. So I think the last point is pretty important. Superintendent Foley likes to talk about equity a lot in her emails. Most recently, there was a story about an immigrant that traveled from Africa through Central America and ended up here and is now attending our schools. And my guess is they probably don't speak English very well. So how is it equitable for that child to learn English with faces covered by their teachers all day, not being able to see their lips, hear the sounds, or interact with their classmates in a friendly manner? I don't think that that's right. And the last point that I would make is our kids are masked in class all day long, but as soon as school ends or on the weekends, all of our kids are out hanging out with their friends on the weekends, or after school without masks, sleepovers, whatever it might be, barbecues. And I know that there's some of you here on this board that have kids in the school system that your kids hang out maskless outside of school. So how in the hell are you able to mandate this for 8 hours a day on our kids when you won't enforce it on your own kids outside of the school place?
Thank you, Michael.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Osterman. I live here in Freeport. I'm a registered nurse, and didn't plan to speak tonight, but I want to speak up for my son Garrett, who is a second grader and enjoys many programs through RSU 5. I thank you for eliminating the requirements for the camps, except for Seaside, because now he'll be able to attend, because I am not vaccinated and neither is my son. My stepson is vaccinated and so is my husband. My stepson has brought home COVID to our household twice. And now my stepson is having issues with his liver. He's also having chronic headaches, and he says brain fog. As a nurse, I don't really want to give my opinion, but I can tell you that sticky, germy masks are not helping these children when they're sneezing in them. My little guy came home with snot all inside his mask. It was really disgusting. And he also had another episode at Wolfnick's farm, not you guys, but he fell down, got hurt, and was crying. His mask was disgusting. And I am sure other parents have had their kids come home with yucky masks. That is full of disease and germs that are going to spread around just as easy as if you didn't have masks and you could wash your hands or sneeze in a tissue and throw it away and wash your hands again. My biggest point here is please remove the mask so that he can breathe. He says, "Mommy, it's really hard to play soccer because I can't breathe when I run." So I know his exercise level would increase if he could breathe more when he could get out there and exercise. All the other parents have said really great things tonight, and I'm so happy that somebody showed up and are supporting everybody here. So the last thing I'll say is please consider to remove the masks mandates, leave it optional for the parents and the teachers so that they can make that choice themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
It's me, Dane Gabbard again. I had a really good friend. He was vaccinated, he got a second vaccination, and even got the boost. He wore the N95 mask, and sometimes if he didn't have it, he wore 2 regular cloth masks like this. And he still was out for the amount of time because he got COVID. So if all 3 of those things aren't working, then how does the mask mandate make sense? Thank you.
Thank you, Dane. Okay, thank you, guys. All right, report from the superintendent.
Thank you. I just wanted to let the board know, I know they had an opportunity for professional development this week, but your next opportunity will be on March 24th from 9:30 to 10:30 at Morris Street School. Principal Nickerson will give you a tour of Morris Street, walk you through some of the classrooms, and talk through all the components of how they approach discipline. This is a follow-up to the written overview you received about our positive behavioral supports in RSU 5. Please let me know if you would like to attend, and thus far I know that Maddie is planning on attending. I won't repeat the good news that Brady gave earlier on some of our sports teams, but I will add to that our swimmers have also done well. 4 of our boys qualified for the states and 7 of our girls, and they will now be competing in the state meet next Monday and Tuesday. And then our indoor track athletes are participating in a state meet on Monday also. And we have 33 kids who will be participating in that competition, which Craig Reynolds told me he thinks that that's been our largest contingent group ever, so that's great. So our athletes are having a wonderful winter season, and so I just want to say go Falcons, and I'm not sure how our girls are doing right now. Brady, have you heard any update?
I have not heard anything since halftime.
Okay.
Heard some cheering.
Do what?
I could hear some cheering.
Oh, okay. What do you know about halftime? What was it then? Do you know?
They were down by 6 at halftime.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully we're catching up.
They lost by 6.
They're actually in a room over there, and some of them are not wearing masks. So it was pretty interesting with the coach and some of the students not wearing masks.
So I also wanted to just tell you that we continue to welcome our newcomers. We now have 18 newcomers enrolled into our schools, and so we're trying to figure out how to best support them, and we've possibly found a new program called Reach My Teach that will help us communicate better with the ones who are right now not able to speak English. Teachers can email, text, or call a parent from their laptop, and then it translates the message into the preferred language, and then the parent can also respond by text or email. If it's a phone call, the teacher talks right into the computer while the parent uses a phone, and the program will transcribe the whole call. And so we really feel like this will help with a better translation than the Google app that we've been previously using. I'm also excited to talk about a student voice opportunity at the high school that's currently going on. In a previous weekly board update to all of you, I had mentioned about a new partnership we have with Cortigo, who owns software that allows us to code interviews to identify themes. And so currently we are training our high school students, some of the leaders who will be leading the conversations about school culture at FHS. These discussions will take place after the February break during advisory times for students who are willing to participate. Of course, this will be optional for students. And these conversations are being entirely led by student facilitators and not the adults. So we think we'll be able to get some really good feedback. The data will then be coded through the software program that Cortigo is providing, and the results will be shared with the student leaders to review. And we hope that this will lead to some further action steps that will lead to even a more supportive and inclusive environment at Freeport High School. My COVID update is that we are now at 684 confirmed cases for the year. We've had 52 cases in the last 14 days, which is still much higher than the numbers we were seeing in the fall. However, today we only had 2 schools who identified positive cases from the pooled testing, and so this is a very positive trend that we hope continues. There were several announcements that came out today pertaining to COVID. One of them was just that families are now eligible for free COVID-19 tests through the state that can be mailed directly to the homes. Every household in Maine is eligible. You can order by going to accesscovidtest.org, and they recommend that with the February vacation coming up that we test our students before having them return, and so families would be free to do that through the test that they would receive from the state. We also today received a communication from the DOE in a meeting with Dr. Shaw and regional school superintendents this morning. It was determined that the masking recommendation for schools will be in place for at least a week following the end of February break. The guidance talks about contact tracing. This is today we got a revised SOP at the very end of the day, and contact tracing will no longer be tied to the universal masking that is being recommended. And the SOP will make it clear that while schools can opt to continue contact tracing, they are no longer required to, regardless of whether there is mask wearing policies in place.
So how the meetings work is it's a meeting of the board, and we have our work that we have to do. They are open to the public for your viewing, and so you can sit in or you can watch it at home. But it's not a back and forth conversation. So. So folks have the opportunity to make a statement. You can also email the board with a question or ask for a meeting with the superintendent to discuss any number of things as it relates to the school district, but the board meeting, unfortunately, is not that opportunity.
So the masking will remain a requirement in the SOP for any positive cases of COVID-19 returning to school in the 5 to 10-day window after a confirmed diagnosis. So even if the kids or staff come back after 5 days, they still have to mask through day 10. If there is a continued positive trend related to COVID case counts in Maine, the CDC will be establishing plans for moving toward a masking optional recommendation for schools.
I'm sorry, we okay, so I understand. All right, so we're going to take a quick break.
That's exactly what you want. Don't answer who pays your salary. While you sit here and you have no concern for our children at all.
So
Go about your business.
I won't ask a question, but how about some feedback on what you heard tonight from what all
They
the
don't
parents
have
said?
none. They won't give you any. I've been here before. I've sat here for 3 hours and listened to your nonsense. These are our children, not yours. Get up and walk out, like every other school district does. You have no backbone. Let's go.
My kids will know who you are in the future.
Our kids aren't wearing masks tomorrow. Send them all
I understand, but
Give you a lot of
this is not that opportunity, unfortunately. So
give us an
if
opportunity. Give us a real
Okay.
opportunity. Who's not getting their kids ready for school and going to work at 7:30 in the morning? Do it 7:30 at night.
they do it at varied times through the year, so tomorrow's just happened to be at 7:30. So because there are folks that go to work at early in, or that work in the evenings, so we try to vary the times. But all right, we're going to keep going with the agenda. If we continue to have interruptions, unfortunately, we'll have to adjourn the meeting and pick it up another day and try and catch up on our presentations.
Maybe that's what we need to do, though.
What's that?
Disrupt what you guys have going on so that you finally address what we need. If we keep disrupting it and you have to adjourn, you have to keep coming, right? And then you have to keep listening because you have to keep having public comment.
We need, this is.
I understand what this is. I'm just telling you what's going to happen.
Okay.
We could keep disrupting and make you guys come back. Or you could just address the fact.
We could ask you to leave because you're disrupting the meeting.
I will, just like everybody else. But we're asking for a simple response. What is your gut reaction? Everybody here, if you're for masks, just raise your hand, you're for masks. Don't hide.
It's not the opportunity, I'm sorry. Were you done with your report? Okay, why don't you carry on? Are you ready, Keith? Okay. Yep.
I'm not sure if I remember which point I was on. I think I had talked about the contact tracing will no longer be tied to the universal masking. But if you still have to mask after a positive case returns to school by staff or student. And I think I was on number 3. If there is a continued positive trend related to COVID case counts in Maine, the CDC plans to establish plans for moving toward a masking optional recommendation for schools. It should be noted that the federal transportation requirement for masks is currently in effect until March 18th, including for school buses. So even if we went mask optional before March 18th, our students would still need to be wearing the mask while they're on school buses. Pool testing will continue to be offered. What I believe that is needed at this time is patience to allow time for the positive data trend to continue, and hopefully will be supported by the anticipated revised SOP that should be coming out after February vacation. There will be a further revision because today's revision was just that one point about not being tied to the universal masking. So they're saying that they will be doing another revised SOP following February vacation, likely in early March. At this moment, I recommend that we continue with universal masking and wait for the guidance that will be released after February vacation. As you all know, we've been receiving many emails from both sides of the issue. Some parents really want us to unmask, as we heard tonight. There are many more that want us to continue until the positive trend, that we have more data to show that positive trend. We have also heard from a lot of our parents of our pre-K students, our youngest students, because they do not yet have access to the vaccine. And yes, tomorrow morning, from 7:30 to 8:30. Assistant Superintendent Alexander and I will be having our next Q&A. And we do, I mean, this is not anything new that we've done. I think we started these, I think we've done them, I don't know, I think 4 years. I mean, obviously since COVID, we've been doing them via Zoom, and we have found that we have much more feedback because it's easier for parents to link in, even if they're like at work. And so we do, every year we do one in the evening, we do one in the morning, and then we do one midday. And so in the fall, we did an evening Q&A. It's time for us to do the morning one, and then in the spring, we'll be doing the one that will be, usually it's mid-afternoon. I do the same thing for the staff, where we kind of vary the time so that hopefully, you know, anyone that's wanting to give feedback can do so. And we're really happy to hear feedback or answer questions about any topic that is on our parents' mind. The link is posted on the district website, and so we would love to have people join us for our morning chat tomorrow. And that concludes my report for the evening.
Questions for Becky? Okay. So we will move on to administrative reports, and I think we only have one this evening, finance, from Peggy.
Thank you, and good evening to all of you. In a review of the year-to-date expenditures so far through January 31st, I'm happy to report that we've spent just under half of the budget at this point, and we've already completed 7 months of the fiscal year. So I see no concerns at this point, and that is nice news. Also, some good news happened today. We're starting to see the solar credits roll in. We received a bill today, and there was a $1,900 credit. So thought you would like to hear that.
Questions for Peggy? That's good news, because I asked yesterday and it was like we'd only saved like $20. So I'm glad to hear it's.
I know. I was
glad
delighted.
to hear it's going up from there. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you.
Okay, board comments and committee reports. Maddie.
I just wanted to take a moment to express my appreciation for your work as our board chair. I believe you were very unflappable and done a wonderful job leading us today in difficult circumstances. And I also want to thank Becky for her perseverance in delivering her report. It's really challenging, and we've been spared this type of a meeting before. And I also just want to reiterate what Becky just said about the fact that we are hearing from many different people. For those who are watching from home, that the folks who gathered tonight are not the only voices that we are hearing. And I just wanted to also express my appreciation for people participating in this process, especially those who are thoughtful and respectful to the way that we have to run our meetings so that we can do the work of the schools and keep them open. Thank you.
Mara.
I thought that was well said, Maddie. We had an MSBA meeting last weekend, and so I wanted to update the board. We did have an opportunity to hear from the chairs of the Education Committee, Senator Rafferty and Representative Brennan, about their legislative priorities for this session. I did run out of the house without my notebook, so I don't have my list right here, but a couple of things that stood out in my mind were addressing the achievement gap, as well as there are 3 bills before the legislature that relate to CDS and school-based services. So my understanding is they're transitioning and have been doing this for a while to a more school-based model for CDS, correct me if I'm wrong, Becky, for CDS, provision of CDS type services. So that really piqued my interest because I thought about our early intervention team proposal. So if you're interested, I can try to get more information about those bills, but it seemed like maybe we were a little bit ahead of the curve in what is being proposed in our budget. And that's all I had on that. And then I just wanted to ask, I see we had a police presence here tonight, And I just wanted to suggest maybe we have that at the beginning of our meeting next time to avoid any potential disruption. Thank you.
Thanks, Maura. Yeah, it's, people are clearly very passionate when it comes to their kids, and I think every one of us sitting here can appreciate that, whether we have kids or whether we are someone's kid, which I guess we all are, right? We can certainly understand the fire and the passion that comes from that, and just trying to, sort of maintain our presence and what we're trying to do here. I appreciate everybody's help with that. And I don't know if there is a way to add another Q&A to have people have an opportunity to ask questions, for regardless of, what the topic is. I know that you do it at varied times throughout the year. I appreciate that. And then every other year, that's perfectly acceptable. But clearly there's a moment in time right now where we have folks that want to feel the opportunity to not only share their opinion, but maybe be able to ask questions. And, obviously I would request that people remain respectful in that conversation. But, the ability to ask a question instead of just make a statement might be helpful in this process. So I might ask if there's a way we could try to get something scheduled or planned, and obviously if I can help, let me know.
Is there a recommendation from the board, like what time you think would be most helpful of the day? I think evening is probably, okay. 6 is usually kind of gets people home, and usually even if it's dinner time, they can pop out for a dump on a Zoom, and so. Any other board comments, committee reports? How's Region 10 going? Do we have? You just got back. That's not fair. I'm sorry. I know you were away.
Actually, a meeting is coming up. They've shared information about some STAR students, and they're looking to create a 4-year high school that has the vocational stuff and the regular academics, and are working on that. And that's really basically what's been going on.
Is their budget done yet?
No, they're working on it.
Okay. I was like, hopefully they're working on that too.
Yes. Yep.
All right. Any other comments, board? Okay. All right. So then we will move to the Finance Committee.
All right. We have had, we had a meeting on February 2nd, and basically Peggy does, again, a great job with the minutes, and there wasn't too much that was new, just all the budget stuff that you guys got as well. And I guess the only other thing that I was wondering is if we got a update on the audit from Marge, which was going to be happening the day after the finance meeting. Do you know, Becky?
We are still working on the audit.
Okay, so
we are getting closer to the end. And so we are hoping to have it finished by the end of February, but that's quickly approaching. So I don't know, we may have to ask for another extension, but I think we're really, really close.
Great, thank you very much. And if anybody has any questions, feel free.
Okay, strategic communications.
Okay, our last couple meetings have been concentrated on looking at the results of the exit surveys, and Becky is in the process of working with Ginny and creating a chart with those results, which should come to you at our April 13th meeting, along with migration information. And the only other thing to share really is that the new satisfaction survey went out to parents in February. So you'll be getting all that information.
And Candy, what is the date for completing that survey, the satisfaction survey for parents?
I don't know offhand.
I'll have to check on that, and maybe we'll give a last reminder.
Thank you.
Okay. There's no policy committee update. We're just going right into policy. Is that right? Okay. All right. So for policy review, we can start with, do I have a motion for consideration and approval of the second read for the following policy, GBCC, employee use of cell phones? Susanna, thank you. And Beth? Cynthia?
Good evening. We took this back for, after first read, for some discussion around how to combine the 5th paragraph and the last paragraph. So if you look at our 5th paragraph down, that is where our changes are for second read. It was just combined, and we crossed out the handheld that was requested last time. And then we also added, Dennis Willett reminded us that we should probably add in that two-way radios are being used. So we added that sentence that's like 3 lines down in that 5th paragraph. It says two-way radios installed in buses may be used to communicate with schools and other buses. Radio communications shall be for school business use only. And I think that's those are the only changes that came for second read.
Any questions on this one? Okay, then we will vote. All those in favor? Opposed? No? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to unfinished business and the budget review.
Okay, I think we're starting with me.
I believe it's you.
I have one. Thanks. Okay, so we've done some budget updates since I was with you a couple of weeks ago. One of the biggest changes that I've made in this revision as of today is I've added in another 0.5 ELL position, bringing us to 2 full-time ELL teachers next year. We currently have a caseload of 37 and expect this to continue growing in the upcoming weeks. I think there are still 17 rooms that are available for our newcomers, and so I think we'll have many more students arriving throughout this spring. We've also added in $1,300 for increased cybersecurity, and this will allow our procedures to be reviewed on a continual basis, and this can also help lower our insurance rate. And then you'll also see on page 1 that this now brings our expenditure increase to 4.09% and our overall tax impact to the district of a 2.71%. You'll notice that from the blue packet that you had, the overall tax impact has gone down. And this is due to us kind of looking at the way we had kind of calculated it, and we decided that we really should take out the additional subsidy of $388,000 in our calculations. And this is what resulted from going from an overall district-wide impact of more like 4 to 2.71%. On page 2, you will see that I have, on the third priority, that I've increased what the cost of the athletic trainer is to $87,000, which is a $67,000 increase to our current budget, because what we have in there is the 20,000. And that is based upon some research that Craig did for me around what area athletic trainers are getting paid. And it's very close to, when you figure in their benefits, it's the same as pretty much for teachers, even though they're on a separate contract. And then I think that you will also see on page 14, with the new increases, you'll see that those tax impacts to the different towns have changed a little bit. And so now Durham is at the increased tax impact of 2.51%, Freeport's at 2.82%, and Pownell is at 2.27%. And then I do want to just clarify that the early intervention team is not for 3 speech teachers. It's for a special ed teacher, an OT, and 1 speech teacher, and that's to provide the services partially for the kids who qualify for CDS services that currently, is just, we're not always able to provide those services. And the team is working on gathering more data, and I would think that after February break that they'll kind of present, I know some of you wanted more data on that, and they're working on that, and we'll have that presentation or that clarification after February break. And I think that those are all my budget updates.
Questions for Becky? Okay, so we can move right into the department presentations, and we will start with technology with Gail.
Good evening. All right, so I know you have a handout in your packet with the highlights of what we're looking for, but I just wanted to start with thinking about last year. So I wanted to thank you for your support with last year's request from our department. We were able to fund a new full-time position for a district computer technician, and as a result, we've been able to provide more consistent tech support for our staff and students this year across all 6 schools and central office. The other request last year was funding for the leases for the new laptops for grades 7 through 12. We are happy to report that these shiny new MacBook Airs have been in the hands of students since the fall, and we're hearing positive feedback about the new devices and their ability to support learning. Brady's giving me a nod. Thank you, Brady. Looking ahead to our proposed technology budget for this coming fiscal year, we definitely need to pay for the year 2 of the laptop leases. They were split into 2 leases, so the 7th and 8th grade, and then the 9th through 12. The first payment for the 7th and 8th grade lease was covered by the Department of Ed last year, but moving forward, we'll need to make the remaining 3 payments of $63,000 each year. The 9th through 12th grade laptop lease is the same amount as last year. We're also required to purchase property and casualty insurance along with the leases, which was not budgeted for last year, so I'm just including that in the list to make you all aware. As Dr. Foley mentioned, I'd recommend that we invest in support for the cybersecurity risk management. MSMA has offered this service to us at a discounted rate, so we've signed up for that piece. I'd also recommend continuing our membership in the group of other Maine districts who have hired Drummond and Woodsum to monitor our data privacy in terms of service with vendors that we have. And this will ensure consideration of student data privacy at an annual cost of about $1 per student. Another request would be to ask for additional iPads to cover the increased enrollment at the elementary levels, and just to make sure we can continue to be one-to-one. At the bottom of the handout, there's a few other pieces. One is about through Amplified IT, we're looking to get some hours support from that company to help provide us with automated user provisioning in Google Workspace, and it will really help to allow us to customize by grade level in a more straightforward manner and really take out the human error piece of it, and just help us be more efficient as we get new users coming in and as people leave the district too. The Power School reports piece, that was just something that was not previously identified as far as I could tell in the budget, but it's something we've been paying for, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And then there was a request from one of the principals to make sure we are able to fund funding for document cameras and things like that that we were able to purchase with COVID funds and things before that, but to make sure as they need to be repaired or replaced that we have a little bit extra for that. So would welcome any questions that you have for me.
I think I'm remembering, I'm going by my memory, Gail, that overall, though, your budget is down about 44,000, right?
So it depends on if you take the salaries and benefits of the tech department. So yeah, so it's pretty much almost even from what I saw.
Thank you.
But if you include salaries and benefits, that's different. Mm-hmm.
So just so I'm clear, so some of these things, even though they're in staffing adjustments, they're not staffing issues, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's just the nature of this template.
Okay.
So we have no extra staff that we're asking for.
Okay. And so just in terms of increases, so the 7th and 8th grade MLTI, that wasn't in the budget, so that's a straight increase, right? And then 9 through 12, that is the same amount we budgeted last year. So that's not an increase at all.
Exactly.
That's flat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the insurance is an increase because it's probably related to the computers we didn't have to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And then the data security, the privacy, is that something we already do?
The student data privacy support, that we just started this past year. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So some of these are increases, some of these are just continuations of what we're already doing.
Okay. Got it. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
I think I would refer to it more as a reallocation.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so if in general
Right,
the
because
staff.
I think if you take out the just staffing and you're just looking at other lines, her budget is down by about 44,000.
Right, so similarly in previous years where Will would say, I don't need 3 second grade teachers, so I didn't hire a new 5th grade one, I shifted one from 2nd to 5th.
Exactly.
It's really just a reallocation of existing to meet the needs. Okay. Vali?
So Gail, may I ask you to provide a document that actually describes the reallocations and then the net increase or decrease so we know exactly what's going on?
Absolutely.
And then in other, some of the lines that you say here that you added it there because it wasn't in the budget, but it's something that we already pay for.
Sorry,
Yeah. It would be good to know how we pay for it now, whether it's a different department that's paying it now, or do we pay it now with a different name? It would be helpful to us to understand
Absolutely.
what money is being moved from what article to what article or what line to what line.
Sure, absolutely. I'd be happy to provide both of those things for you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions for Gail? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next up, Cynthia. Instructional curriculum, instruction, and assessment.
Good evening again. So on it's the orange handout. Looks like everybody has it. So on the first side, the curriculum development and improvement of instruction. My budget has been pretty stable. There are no staff under this particular cost center. Well, me, but when I'm budgeting, the big line in this budget is curriculum materials. And we've kept that stable, pretty stable for the last 4 years. And just to give you an example of what might come out of that, Latin books, we've purchased some Latin books for the high school this year, for example. Anything that's a new program comes out of that line. Once we have established programs, they're budgeted at the school level. So I can foresee us using some of the money I've put aside for next year is for the potential social studies. It won't necessarily be textbooks, but it would be books to support our new units of study, for example. So I just wanted to kind of give you that quick overview so that you understood, like, that's the big line in this. There's much smaller lines, but it's a stable budget, so there's nothing new there. Also included, you'll see at the top says curriculum development and improvement of instruction. That cost center has a lot in it. There's tuition in all of that, and that's kind of like an average and so forth. But the line that really pertains to what I would be budgeting for would be professional development. And an example of what we used it for, or part of it for this year, was responsive classroom right before we started school. So are there any questions on this page?
Would this also be where, like, Lynn Lyons would have been budgeted, or?
It could be, but I put that in the ESSER 3 grant.
Oh, because of the social emotional piece?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then on the next, in the next page, we have the gate budget. And again, this one is stable. There's on the bottom where it says significant increase, I have a slight increase, so I didn't put anything on there. The slight increase is for guest teachers, because we're finding that we had a $1,000 budget for that, and so we increased that by a couple of $1,000. So that'd be some for each of the elementary schools for guest teachers. As an example of what we're using a guest teacher for this year, coming up pretty soon, is songwriting. We have a stipend position at the middle school for music, and that's actually, they decided to split it this year, which is really interesting. So we have Nate, who's doing the vocals, and we have Aaron, who's doing the instrumentals. And so there was a high interest with that group. Just so you know, we don't do the same thing every year. It's based on what the kids need and what their interests are. And so there was a big interest in songwriting, and so they have someone coming in to help them with songwriting, so maybe we'll have a performance. So that's one example of what a guest teacher would do. So that's the only increase in that. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia. All right, next up is nutrition. Erin.
I thought I would take this opportunity to report to you guys on the results of our administrative review that was completed earlier this year, because I told you I would. So this is a 5-year administrative review where the Department of Education comes in and means tests everything we do: finances, meal pattern, nutrition analysis, professional development, everything, wellness initiatives, and I'm happy to say we had no findings. So we're very happy about that. In addition, they commented on how colorful our menus were looking. They had pictures of everything that we did for a particular week in January. So they definitely commended my staff for the work that they're doing. So I wanted to pass that along to you. And as far as my budget goes, last year at this time, I told you that I created this year's budget, assuming that this would be a more normal year, but obviously knowing that I had no idea what that meant. But what I did was I followed my normal procedure for projecting expenses and revenues, and I kept our food and supply budget increases in line with participation rates and adjusted for projected enrollments. And last year at this time, I reported that despite the fact that we were still juggling some in-person and remote learning, our breakfast counts were up by 23% and our lunches were up by 11%. And that went really well for us because we ended the year in a good spot. And so I figured, why mess with success? Let's do that again. So there's really not a lot to see in this budget. Really all I've done is once again adjusted any of our food and supply lines in line with more increases in participation this year. Based on the year-to-date data, we're projected to serve 75,000 more meals than we did last year. That's just school year meals, not including the summer meals that we've been doing. And so the additional support on the staffing side that we added in last year has really served us well, but not quite well enough, because we did have to add a position at Durham, which we funded with the money that was set aside for an unfilled position at Moore Street School. So the budget that you have this year does have an increase because it now has that new position and also the open position that we still have. So aside from that, everything else is kind of standard issue. The beauty, or a lot of times the curse of an enterprise account, is that sometimes the numbers don't always work out. But right now it is. So I'm happy to say that we're, cost neutral for the next school year, anticipating that our increased participation is going to help offset some of the definite increases we've seen in the cost of doing business lately. So that's all I've got for you.
First of all, congratulations on a great review, it
Thank
sounds
you.
like. So no findings is good findings,
Yes,
right?
that's the best kind of finding.
Perfect. Well, congratulations on that. And 75,000 more meals this year. We have
Yeah.
2,000 kids. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's, I think so we've run, for those of you who are new, we've run a summer meals program for the past few years. We were allowed to because the USDA waived the free and reduced percentage requirement that generally disallows us from doing these things. And we did a lot of business that way. And it was really a necessity in our community as people were recovering from all of the shutdowns. So there was, a boost in our revenues from that, but I've never really used that to contemplate the regular budget. Because at the end of the day, if your summer meals program doesn't make money, you shut it down. You have to shut it down. And if it makes too money, then you're required to put the money back into it to improve the program. So we don't know if we can run one this year. And so that's not contemplated in this budget at all, funding for any of that. It should be self-funding, and it has been.
Questions for Aaron? Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, community programs. Peter.
Good evening, everybody. For those of you new to the board, you may not be aware that that community programs are annual operations, and our budgeting is a little different than other departments in the school district. We receive local share each year for our adult ed operations specifically, and the rest of our operation is completely self-sustaining. So all of our overhead for youth programs, for recreation, for childcare, Laugh and Learn, et cetera, that all comes out of program revenue. So it makes our process a little cleaner, or the lines at least a little cleaner, and our local share goes to support our adult ed coordinator and our instructors and all of our materials and all the other things that go along with working on our high set and English learners and our Freeport High School students who are helping through the post program to get to their next goals, whether that's college or the world of work. Just speaking to the adjustments from last year, just to review some things where we've been over the pandemic. We were able in this past year to return our recreation program assistant back to 30 hours a week. His hours had been trimmed significantly because of the reduction in programming. So we've been able to get him back to where we'd like him to be. We saw increased hours for adult education, the adult education coordinator, through the POST program, formerly known as Summer Melt. Last year, we served in the ballpark of 12 or 14 students and had great success in helping them achieve their next goals. And had a talk with Katie, our adult ed coordinator, today, and the folks at Freeport High School, the list of recommendations for students that they would like to direct to that program is up around 25. So we're hoping that we have another really big growing batch for this year. So that's exciting news. And then also the Laugh and Learn staff this year was as small as it's been in my 4 years in this position, but we've operated that program successfully. It has required a lot of coverage from the childhood education coordinator, from myself, from our office coordinator. We've all had to chip in a lot more regularly to cover open shifts, but we've made it through. So we have a good full team right now. As I think you all know by now, we are losing our childhood education coordinator soon, but I guess you don't. They do now. We do have a staffing change coming in the office, but we've started interviewing for the next coordinator and have some really, really strong candidates that we're excited about. So staffing is good, and we're able to support that with our revenues. The only change that I foresee for the coming year in that regard is hiring additional Laugh and Learn staff to adequately operate existing centers and projected growth in Freeport. Part of that is the fact that we're having our own center, hopefully, with a new mobile unit that's going to be placed at Mass Landing School, which will give us some real permanence and a sense of place, and hopefully will be a really good change for both the children that we serve and for our staff, and for reducing our turnover rate there. And just as far as how things are looking for this spring and for the coming year, we have really seen a rebound with registrations. About a week or two ago, hopefully you all have seen the new catalog that arrived in mailboxes, and really proud of the range of programs and just the volume of programs that we have in there. Within the first week, Camp Seaside, in the younger half, the Puffins, the K through 2 group, completely sold out for the summer for all 7 weeks. We have a lengthy waiting list for that group. The 3rd through 5th grade group, the SEALs, is about 50% full for all 7 weeks of the summer. Youth camps are selling, and also in talking about today with our team about adult enrichment, where we have been lagging significantly through the pandemic. Early registration numbers are really encouraging, better than what we've seen certainly in the last couple of years. So we're hopeful about a rebound there. So things are good in that regard. We're not hiring any new staff, and that's really where our biggest expenditures go. But we're looking healthy for the coming year.
Questions for Peter? Colin.
Just a comment. My daughter read the entire catalog this morning at breakfast, and she's incredibly enthusiastic. Her only complaint is she can't enroll. I can't remember what it was, but there was something that 2 to 4-year-olds can take that she as a 9-year-old is not allowed to. But I said that I'd speak with you about it and maybe get an exemption.
All right. I know a guy, right?
Okay.
Was that your answer?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, thanks for that. She's really excited about it. Yeah. Thanks for all you're doing.
Oh, good.
All right. Thank you, Peter.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right. But last, but certainly not least, we have facilities and transportation with Dennis.
Good evening. So my budget is based around bus driver custodians. We're trying to give all students access to trips and sports and fields and clean buildings, and we need to have the right people to do that. And bus drivers are, as you know, are a big shortage. So this budget revolves basically around hiring a bus driver and a custodian. Some good news on that front is we've been giving a class once a week at the Freeport Middle School on Thursday nights at 5 o'clock. So far, there's been 10 people. It was 5, but it's up to 10 in various stages of licensing. One person got their license. 3 people have their permit. One person's going for her driver license test tomorrow, and one's going next week. So we're making some progress, and we're getting some people that are really interested in driving next year, which is really great. It's promising. I picked up another person today to join the class. We're always shooting our mouth off about, come join our class. So, hey, it's Thursday nights at 5 if anybody wants to do it. I know you've probably got enough to do already, but so that's the big deal with us, is trying to get the right amount of drivers with retirements and shortages out there. We really are looking for some drivers, and I think we've found a way to get them, and hopefully we'll have a different story next year. Other increases in my budget are for heating, price of natural gas, and I put a $10,000 increase in that. We've been kind of holding the line pretty tight with that for the last couple of years. And paper products, which we use a ton of paper products in our schools, paper towels, toilet paper, all that kind of stuff. We have an increase of about $11,000 for paper products. But basically, that's the entirety of my increases. I mean, there's some smaller increases here and there, but those are the big hits.
Susanna.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
Sure.
I'll just say that I know 2 of the people who are taking the bus driving class, and both of them have raved about just so much fun, and they're both coming off of other careers and just really looking forward to the chance to be with kids and get involved in the community, but also just said that how you're running it is just really, really good fun.
We actually took a field trip last week.
Yeah.
We went to the bus garage and did a pre-trip inspection on a bus.
Yeah, no, I mean,
that
it's
was
just
fun.
I was over at somebody's
Hey.
house, and he came home from the course, and I was at his house, and he was just like, he just lit up, and he's like, my evening's made, and I'm just really happy, and he was in a great mood for the rest of the night, and he said it was just because it was just such a fun environment. So I'm just really happy that you're finding something that's really satisfying the needs of the town, and because this has been a struggle for a while, but doing it in a way that's getting community engagement and really finding people who may not be involved otherwise, but are just having a lot of fun with it. So I'm just really hoping to see that.
It's a fun time, actually.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think so, but it's.
I've driven a few times.
A great time.
I've driven a few times myself, not obviously for this district,
really?
but I'm on the board, COI, but I really enjoyed it, so it's fun.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you're doing that with good success.
Great.
Thank you.
I think of kids with permits. I'm like, oh, they're driving little cars. Thinking of people with bus permits, that's frightening.
Yeah.
Zune.
It's not, though. It's easy.
Hi. I'm looking at the prices for the potential increase in prices for heating, the $10,000.
Yeah.
I worry that whether or not that is enough of an increase.
Well, I think
what I'm worried about is if Russia invade Ukraine.
Yeah.
This is thousands of miles away, but it might affect us. The pipeline that's been built is the joint project between Germany and Russia, and they're supposed to supply heating mostly over there. There are indications that United States, if this happened, would supply Europe, would help Europe through with a heating crisis, and that would affect us. The price here would go up. So it was $10,000 enough?
Well, I think we had a bit of a cushion in there before, for one thing, and we burn natural gas here, so it comes from North America. So that might help things a little bit.
And we also have a heating reserve account that we have built. I think it's at $100,000 that if we ever got to the point where we had burned through our allocation in the budget for that very reason, things that we couldn't necessarily foresee in the budget process. We have that available to us too. And we have in the past had to use that, and then we sort of rebuilt it back up in the following years.
Yeah, I'm sure we got our heating from North America, but I was worried that's what happened over there, and the United States stepped in and guaranteed Europe that we will send liquid natural gas, for example, via tanker over there, then prices here would go up. But I appreciate what you're telling me.
I think we're pretty prepared for it.
Okay.
Yes, I do see it on page 11. Thank you. Yeah, so it's at $100,000, and the heating fuel budgeted in the budget is actually $269,000.
Yeah.
And then the other thing to remember is because Durham's on the geothermal, it's electricity, so it's.
That's terrific.
Yeah, they don't burn any fuel unless there's a secondary system,
right?
Right?
They do, but not.
Very minimal.
Yeah, they burn propane in the kitchen and for the boiler for hot water, but it's minimal. I mean, I say minimal. There's 10,000 gallons in the ground, but we probably use 8 a year over there.
Beth.
I just also want to commend you on the class of bus drivers because I feel like there was something at the beginning of the year when Michelle and I were touring the middle school, and Ray had said something about people training, and I said, oh, that's a class. And then I asked Becky, and she said, no, we don't have a class going. I don't know. And then all of a sudden, there was a class going. So I just think it's a really fantastic sort of creative solution to this problem that we've been having. So I just want to thank you. And
Ray actually got his license. I don't think I'm allowed to use him though, but.
Well, if his team wants to get somewhere.
Yeah, that's what he said to him when he actually drove to Lost Valley last week for one quick trip because we were just stuck. We didn't have anybody. And he did a drop-off for us. It was great.
There you go. Other duties as assigned, I guess. Any other questions or comments for Dennis? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that wraps up all of the department presentations, yes?
Yeah.
Yep, so that's all of them. That's all of our sheets. So at our next board meeting, we'll start sort of synthesizing and talking about the budget more as a whole now that we've heard from all the different department heads. But good news, it's not next week. Feels like we've seen each other every week forever. We have 2 weeks. All right, yep.
So I just kind of want to recap. So at the next meeting, before you start your deliberations, we'll give you a little bit more information about the early intervention team. And then we'll have Gail kind of do something with the more information on technology. I think we've provided you with what you wanted to know around the athletic trainer.
I think the only other piece was whether Coastal would be willing to increase their hours. And so instead of hiring our own, if we could go from 20 hours to 40 hours or whatever it was.
All right, I'll research that. And is there anything else I need to research before?
I just wanted some clarification with the information you're gathering on the athletic trainer. It was my understanding that that third tier was not included in the budget right now.
It is not. Nothing in that third budget is included, but there were questions from the board about that, and that's what resulted in us giving you further information. But no, nothing in the third tier, which is the .2 equity officer, the math strategist, and the athletic trainer. Those are currently not in the budget.
Okay, and so that meeting coming up after you give us this information, that would be up for discussion at that point?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Maura.
And then just to clarify, that's not our only meeting with deliberations. We always have 2, is that right? Or
yeah.
More? Or
Yep, I think,
2?
or more, or several.
It seems like a bunch in my mind.
I feel like our timeline is in here, right? Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm seeing 9th and 16th of March.
Oh, you guys have 3 weeks until we meet again.
And then on March 23rd, we adopt.
Yes, so we have 3 more meetings. We have 3 meetings in March where we'll discuss the budget. Typically, that last one for adoption, we kind of have the number nailed down because that's when we sign all of the plethora of papers. So really, it's those 2 meetings to really adjust and make changes if we want to. All right, but we're not done with tonight yet. I don't want Cynthia to think we forgot about her. All right, so the other item under unfinished business is, do I have a motion for consideration and approval of the second read for the 2022-2023 school calendar? Vali and Mara, thank you.
Okay, trifecta. All right, Vali and Mara, thank you. So when we came to first read with the calendar, I had mentioned to you that some of the other districts were looking at early release days in their calendars, and so I know, or additional. Well, I think Brunswick doesn't have any, so I know Brunswick is still in conversations around them. They have in their draft calendar several of them. And they're using a particular day of the week, but it's not approved yet. So I don't want to usurp what they're going to be doing with their board. And I know that in 75, they have late starts. So it's a little different. So those are the calendars that connect with ours. So on this round 2 calendar, the 2 additional pieces I'd like to call your attention to are January 13th, and then March 16th. So those are 2 proposed additional early release days to the 2 that we already have. Just a reminder, those are student days. And then once the students are released, the rest of the day would be used for professional development. I did speak with, we had conversation at our administrative team meeting, pretty in-depth about what we would do with that time, because the board asked us to, be a little bit more specific. And so they felt that keeping it building-based and the work would be either looking at their data, working on curriculum, or unpacking units, or other related things to the work or professional development they've already started. So it's like a continuation, not something new, but going deeper with some of the work they've already started in their buildings, or curriculum work, and or extending and maintaining skills for staff. You also asked, one of the board members asked about the care for students. And so I have had a conversation with Peter, who's behind me, and he is looking into staffing around that. We talked even about the possibility of trying something out in May. Not sure if that can happen this year, because we already have one scheduled this year. It really is all dependent on staffing for him. There may be a possibility that they would do something at one site where they had maybe 4 Laugh and Learn staff members, able to do the work with the kids, but that they in the office would do the programming for it and set up whatever event or activity would happen. So we don't have anything finalized or finite, and again, it would depend on staffing, but we're in conversations about that. And those are the only updates from the last time. There were no other changes.
Have we talked to the leadership teams or the union about the teachers' perspective on the early release days? Do they find them beneficial?
I have not asked the administrators that, so I can go and do that if you would like me to do that, yes.
I'm just curious if they find it, a productive use of time or not.
Mm-hmm.
I know someone had reminded me after we had talked about this last that we used to have a use of time committee that
Mm-hmm.
really looked at sort of the calendar. I think they were the ones who initially weighed in with the curriculum coordinator around the proposed calendar each year. I don't think we have that committee anymore, but, that was one of the things they looked at was, and I think there were staff on that committee for that perspective. And I was just curious if we had asked. Polly?
Thank you, Cynthia. About the care and the conversations that you're having with Peter, would this be free care or would it be paid?
I believe it would be paid.
For the conversations that you're having about providing care, aftercare for the early release days, the board was interested in knowing whether it would be paid or free, and the hope was that it would be free so that it wouldn't impact families financially.
And Peter, could you also just say how many students you think you could accommodate?
Okay, yes. So, Valley, the answer to your question, I think, is that if we needed to hire additional staff on those days, it would be wonderful for us to be compensated somehow, and whether that's a nominal fee for each family to take part, where we just cover our costs, or when Cynthia and I were discussing it recently, we talked about the June camps that we did when the Wolf Neck Farm contract ran out last year, where we did the work on behalf of the school district, and we were reimbursed by the school district a little bit for that work. So we just want to cover our costs, and however that happened would be fine.
Right.
And then, Becky, to your question about how many we could accommodate, it really does come down to staffing. So for something like this, I think the first thing that I would do would be reach out to Laugh and Learn, our entire Laugh and Learn staff, and say, hey, okay, here's a day where you're not on because of the PLD or the early release, who's interested in working a day with the children. And we would accommodate as many kids as we had staff to safely handle. We could, of course, supplement that by having our coordinators, our office staff be there, because we're already paying them to be in the office, and they could help. But it would be really nice to have supported Laugh and Learn staff or others that we could hire. But that could be tricky.
But you must have a sense of what you think you could do.
So I think that it would be safe to say that with our worst case scenario, and we had no Laugh and Learn staff who were able to or interested in working a day like that for us, I think that we could take 3 staff from the community programs office and handle 30 children, 35 children.
Thank you, Peter. And there's no expectation that being an enterprise fund, we would ask you to provide care for free. If you have added costs, we just want to know what the cost would be, because if you need to be reimbursed, we need to add that to the budget.
Yeah. I could see these being really very, very affordable days for everyone involved. Yeah, I don't see this as being an expensive project. It's really just about getting the staff.
Right, but it would be really helpful to have an actual number so that, because if we're talking about the budget and we're trying to assess how much we need to add to it,
right.
If we want to provide free care, then that number is handy.
Yep,
I also wanted to ask Becky, how many students do we have in the elementary grades?
I would say about 1,000.
1,000. So we can accommodate 35 of 1,000 students.
Correct. Well, right, because we have about 2,000 kids. And so if you think about 6 through 12, right, and then you have pre-K to 5. Yes.
Okay. And then, Cynthia, I had a question that's related not to the care, but to the early release versus late start. Was there a conversation about late start for the high school and middle school?
No, there was not.
Okay, because I would like that to be explored. I mean, based on biology, teenagers do much better in the afternoon when they're awake. So if we're going to reduce the number of hours that they are in school, it makes most sense to bring them in late. So when they're here, they're at their peak productivity time. And I understand that there's some transportation issues that would need to be rearranged, but I don't foresee that it wouldn't be possible to bring them in later after the elementary school students go to school at the regular time. For elementary, having an early release day makes sense, especially because parents are trying to go to work early, but for the older students, it makes more biological sense to do it the reverse. And also, it would eliminate the problem that we have on early release days for students who need to wait for 3 hours to then participate in after-school activities like sports. They go into town and there's no supervision, and this is for all the middle and high school students. So I would really like for someone to look into that option.
You triggered a thought on January 13th when we were discussing it at the high school. I believe that is when they have the kid. I think that Jen was saying it won't impact her because might be when they're having their. No, it's not. It's the week after. Oh,
No,
you're shaking your head.
I don't think I was at that meeting.
You were not at that meeting. It was when you were, in Texas. And so it won't impact the high school on that January 13th day because the kids are doing, I believe that's when they're having their midterms or they're coming in for extra help or something like that. She said it wouldn't impact her that day. So, but I can get back to you on the late start. I know they don't like it. I just can't tell you why. So I'll have to get that information for you.
Okay, and sorry, but what is happening on the 13th of January?
That's one of the proposed
It's one
dates.
of the early release days that they added.
No, I understand, but you said that it wouldn't affect them because they're...
Well, Jen said it wouldn't affect them, and I don't want to misquote, so it has something to do with, I think, midterms.
That's the Friday before midterms, because usually midterms are the week of Martin Luther King. So they have Monday off, and then they have 4 days. So I don't know why the Friday before...
Yeah.
Do you guys have school the Friday before midterms break?
We do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
A normal day.
It might be more about what about the professional development that they can have rather than the students. So,
yeah, some clarification would be great because the professional development can happen morning or afternoon as far as I can see, but there's something I'm not seeing, obviously.
So a couple of thoughts on the ability to offer some support for families for the early release times. And this, forgive me, I just don't know what the involvement is, but if we're talking data and those sort of things, are all of our ed techs involved in that? Like what do they do at an early release? And could there be an opportunity for them to help supplement Peter's team to help support with kids? For activities, some kind of activities. I don't know.
Yeah, they still work the full day, right, for early release. So typically, if they're working, then they would be involved in what the professional development is because they are an integral part of working with the students. But you're asking if they could help to provide care.
Well, I don't know if they're, looking at data for students, I don't know how involved the ed techs are in that. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't.
Yeah.
If you tell me they're right there next to the teacher doing all of this stuff, then it doesn't make sense. But I was just thinking, if there are folks that aren't involved in whatever that they're doing, then maybe because they are working, they could be helpful in that manner. Joe?
Just a couple thoughts. I mean,
could you move the mic just a little closer to you?
Sure. If we're looking at hiring 3.5 ed techs as substitute teacher fill-ins, it seems to me those would be someone that might be tapped for this. Just a thought, but I don't know. Maybe they would have something else to do that day. When we first talked about the calendar, it stuck in my mind that one of the reasons why we're looking at adding those half days is because it would help line us up with the calendar in Region 10 and wasn't that?
No, early release days don't impact the lining up with Region 10 does impact, yes.
Yeah.
So if they're not the same day.
Yeah, because if we have students we're sending there, it'd be nice to line up the calendar. But I thought I heard that when that was recognized, the comment was from our administrative team is that it would be nice to have a couple more half days. And reflecting on some conversations we've had as a board in recent weeks, we're thinking about our staff and treating them as professionals and needing time to prepare. And in these times, I don't think that you can't give them a greater gift, but give them some time to really look at working with students when the students aren't here. Because I think that's the thing they've lost in COVID. So for me, I mean, I understand the late start. I think that's a conversation, not for half days, but for the calendar anyway, and that takes a long time in a process. So I appreciate that you're starting that conversation. But for this, I kind of like that if the administrators see this important, I think we should add them.
Other thoughts? Colin?
Yeah, I completely agree with Jill. I think the sticking point for me is just the question of coverage. So I think that because to Jill's point, I think the students will enjoy some students will enjoy that early release. It is also a benefit to the overall learning, but an aid to the teachers. And if we're doing that, how are we also ensuring that we're serving the very people that we're mean to be serving? So I guess maybe if there was a way to have options the next time we might hear about it. In other words, like here's what it would look like if we say that the ed techs would do it. Here's what it would look like if we had to, and here's what the charge would be if we had to charge students. And I think also to Valé's point, understanding a bit better the need, because just sitting here, I have no understanding whether 35 is perfect or grossly missing the mark on what we would actually need to be able to provide. I have no sense of that.
Can you repeat the last thing? Whether 35?
The ability to support 35 students.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the sort
care.
of
Okay,
the
gotcha.
baseline, the answer to Becky's question. So if
Gotcha.
So again, if there's, I don't know what the comparison would be. I don't know if we have data from some other event that we could say, with this we needed to have 300 covered, or again, I don't know what that would be, but it seems very hard to make a call on that without it.
Jen?
I just have two quick questions. How many early release days do we have in this calendar?
2.
2, so we're adding 2. So
Yeah,
it's
correct.
an addition of 2. Okay, my second question is just to be respectful of your situation, because I know that this involves 2 other school districts. Like, do you have a timeline? Because I know, like, we've kind of asked you to do a bunch of things, and I know that there has to be a time that the calendar is kind of solidified for next year, correct?
I think time is on our side. I know the last board meeting in 75 got canceled, that this was going, their calendar was going to first read. And I'm not sure if Brunswick has gone to first read or not yet.
Okay.
So I think we've got a couple meetings.
Okay, I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that I know that you have a timeline on that end, so.
Yes.
Susanna?
Thank you, Cynthia.
You're welcome.
Quick question just on going back to the idea of coverage, which again, I want to ensure that we have. Just wondering about transportation and ensuring that transportation would be provided with that as well. If that's something that we can look into, and talking about having, possibly, Peter, you were saying having care or monitoring at a central location or sort of one of the schools. And if it's Laugh and Learn teachers, that would make sense as to which school, but that kids can have the transportation to that school from wherever they are, and then to their homes in the afternoon as they would on a normal bus route. So I don't know if that's...
We talked briefly about the transportation from other schools to one location, but we did not, I think we talked about they would be picked up. So we haven't talked about transportation
Yeah, because
home.
that would be great, just because a lot of parents aren't necessarily home at bus times, and how that would work. That would be good conversation. Thank you.
Molly?
Yeah, and because this is the first time that we are considering doing this, it would be worth, if we could, just send out a quick survey to parents and say, would you be interested in having aftercare, and would you pay this much? Whatever that cost associated with it is, and see what we get. Otherwise, we're operating a little bit in the dark.
I saw more first. Yep.
I like that idea, Vali. I was going to suggest something similar for the late start, because I feel like it would be good to have feedback from parents about whether they'd be okay with that, especially if it's a situation where they have kids across multiple schools who are going to be starting late and also ending early and all that kind of stuff. So I like that idea. And then I also wanted to suggest that we just keep the equity aspects in mind of this additional care idea, and maybe, you know, some people who can afford it pay, and maybe, you know, maybe it's free for others or something like that. I'd imagine if it's free for everybody, we'd probably get a lot more interest. So just a thought that we could consider. Thanks.
Beth.
And I just had a thought when Colin was speaking around how many, you know, we can accommodate with a Laugh and Learn. At this moment, we don't accommodate every single child, you know, age that needs the daycare, right? I mean, we're not, or are we able to accommodate every kid in this district in Laugh and Learn that needs it?
Peter, could you come up? I mean, how many people do you turn away? I know that we cannot accommodate everyone. One of the issues we've tried over the past few years is looking into like Pownell. Pownell doesn't have any before and after daycare, and it's because there's not enough interest for us to be able to, I would say, break even, right?
That's correct. And Beth, I'm sorry, was this your question? Yeah. We have not been in a situation in my time here or any time in the past that I'm aware of where we've had to turn families away. So there's not a need that has been expressed that is beyond our ability to staff. We have not seen that yet.
Other than at Pownell, where we have a few.
Where we've considered the possibility of doing something new. Correct. Right. So in my time, there have actually been 2 false starts in Pownell where we believed that we had a critical mass to start some sort of program, and then once we put it out there and families needed to commit, it was not enough for it to be viable.
Thank you. And I guess I was just thinking that even though we have 1,000 elementary age kids, that a lot of those kids, if they're not participating in the Laugh and Learn daycare already, they have other daycare that usually, is in the district. And so just to me, thinking about these early release days, we're putting them in the calendar a year in advance. It's not something that's going to be, a surprise for families. So to me, I feel like I would support this. So.
Vali.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that this is part of the school day. So a lot of families who send kids to aftercare or before care can do that, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to have the kid come home in the middle of the day or during the work day or what's considered the school day.
Right, it really depends on what their care is after. Jen?
I was just going to say, I agree with Beth. I think that there's plenty of time for people to make plans. And I think what Beth was saying, which I agree with, is that people have situations set up. And a lot of times an after-school daycare or something like that follows the calendar of the towns. The ones that I know, they follow. And when there's an early release day or something, like they provide care. And again, that may be an additional fee, so I'm keeping that in mind as well. But I do think that, we have to be very, very careful of not feeling that we are daycare. We are school.
Okay, so do people feel like they're ready to vote on this? Because we have a motion we can table it if we, as a board, feel like we want more time or more information before we vote on this. But Maddie?
Just thinking back to when I was new on the board and we were talking about this conundrum we had with the calendar and these 2 other districts, and our recommendation at the time was let's complete ours early so that we're not answering to them. Let's, so that's just a word of caution. If we want to take a lot more time with this, we might put ourselves back in a situation that we don't have a lot of choice.
I will say that these early release days, wherever we put them, have no impact on Region 10 because they're school days, right? So it's only full days off that we have to align within 5 days. So is my understanding. Yes?
That's correct.
But even though we're deciding on early release day, like.
You want to lock in our other days, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, because I feel like this used to come to us in this time frame, and Brunswick and 75 finished theirs in November, and we had zero opportunity to change days. So I feel you on that, Betty. Avali.
So I'm personally not ready to vote, and if I were to vote right now, I would vote against it because I don't have enough information. So I would rather table it, but I'll just do whatever people want. I also wanted to point out that in the last couple of years, we have taken away all the professional development time because the teachers needed it just to get a respite. So I understand that there is a pent-up need for more time, but that time is coming back to them in all the other settings that we took away in the last couple of years to do professional development. So I understand that it would be nice to have extra time for professional development, but then doesn't mean there won't be a change over what we currently do because we will be adding that original professional development time to their schedule.
Jill.
Just quickly, because I'm new, is this the first time you're ever going to do a half day, or have you been doing them?
There's 2 in the calendar. There's been 2 in the calendar at least for 3 years, I believe.
Okay, so
we have one coming up in May.
We've been having 2, and we've been have we had a lot of people saying this is so bad, I have no place to take my kids?
I have not heard that. I would defer to Dr. Foley, as she may have received emails. I'm not sure.
I haven't. I think we've discussed it every year, but as far as me receiving personal emails, I haven't. But I think maybe other board members can kind of speak to that. You probably hear more in the community around that than I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's anecdotal. If you talk to a parent that has a young child that they're struggling, then they may mention it. I don't think it's a huge prevalent issue. I'm not necessarily opposed to having these. My only hesitation is I would like for the teachers to have been included in the discussion, right? So if this is to benefit them, then I would love for them to have said, yes, this is beneficial to us. Because there is an impact. There's an impact to learning time. There's an impact to families. And it might be a very worthy impact, but without the teacher input.
Yeah, I guess my 2 cents would be you've asked for a lot of other data to gather, and I was assuming that was to help inform your decision making about it. So
No, I mean, if people want to vote today, then I'm going to vote today. I mean, we have a motion on the table in a second. So unless we have enough people that says they need more time and want to table this, we're going to vote today. So.
And you still want the data?
Well,
okay.
I mean, I don't know if there's what data. No, I mean, it doesn't matter. Okay. I guess my more for the future is, if we're going to put these in place for teachers, for the benefit of teachers,
right.
Let's ask the teachers to make sure they want it. Vali.
Thank you. I wanted to answer Jill's question. Before Becky joined the district, we used to have a lot more early release days, and the parents came in uproar to the board to say, we do not want these. They're incredibly disruptive. So we went down on the number of early release days. So I am concerned about creeping back up to that point, knowing that there was a very vigorous pushback from parents when we had more early release days. So I'm just saying, personally, I'm going to tread really cautiously around these because I've been here before and I know how parents reacted.
I don't recall that. Susanna.
2 questions. The first, I'm sure I know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I like hearing myself talk. The 2, I presume we can't solidify the calendar, vote on the calendar with the days off, and then vote on which days if there's early release later. I mean, could we say that this is pending to early release days decided in March at the next meeting, but we can confirm the rest of the calendar and then we can get ahead of MS 75 and.
There's nothing that says we can't vote on the calendar and then change it. I mean, we've done it in the past, right? We've done it with the snow days, right? Those are technically official changes to the calendar, to the school calendar. So, you know, we could approve it as presented, and we always have the right as the board to revisit it if we wanted to.
Okay. And my second question is, you know, talking about the professional development and sort of giving back to teachers what they haven't had in the past couple of years. Would these early release proposals is the idea that these would be a 1-year sort of giving back some of that time, or would this be the idea being sort of a standing every year we would have additional early release days?
I don't anticipate adding more. I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't anticipate that there would be more.
I mean, I guess my point would be next year, would we sort of be assuming that we'd have 4? Or would we be back to 2 and just seeing that the 2 in next year, as in a year from now, looking at the 24 calendar? So would these 2 additional ones we're adding just sort of be for a 1 year, making up for past?
I think what would be good to do is evaluate how they went, because we would have, let's see, we would have 1, 2, well, we would have the 2 prior to calendar time. We wouldn't have a full year to evaluate by the next time, but I mean, I think things can change year to year, right? Like even you might decide you only want to put 1 in this year or something, right? So I think it would be how well did they go? You know, were they beneficial, and was the work worthwhile doing in that way? But we'd only have had 2. We'll have the 1 in the spring, and then we'd have the 2, 1 in the fall and 1 in January.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering more about the actual time of professional development, not so much the early release. It just, I mean, I see how it's coming now as an early release. It's sort of, you know, doing the half day to give teachers more time. Is this something that we're seeing in the longer run that we're going to want to be providing teachers with additional time? Or is this sort of making up for what we haven't had in the past recently?
I'm not anticipating that. I'm not anticipating any of those things. I think we have to look at what the circumstances are at the time and make the best decisions at that time.
Great, thank you.
Becky promises she's not adding any next year. Maddie.
I like Susanna's idea that we vote on the calendar and we continued the discussion about early release dates after we vote on the calendar. Because Michelle, I would like to hear a little bit more from the teachers. I would like to know what teacher perspective is on that. If that's something, even if it's sort of informally gathered by each principal, I would be curious to know that. And then to Valley's point, I would like to see the historical summary of how many early release days did we have. So is moving from 2 to 4 represent a full return or a half return? Like I'd like that information before I vote on the early release day part. But I am eager to pass the rest of it.
Valley.
So for the historical piece, this was before Michelle's older kid, my second kid, were in school. It was when our older kid was in school that they rolled back all the early releases because people were really upset. So if Jeannie's going to do some research, she needs to go a little bit back in time. And as far as voting for the calendar, without the early release days, the motion on the table is to accept as presented. So if we're going to try to vote for the base calendar without the additional early release days, we need to have a new motion on the table.
Or an amendment to the motion that's on the table. Maddie.
I'd like to propose an amendment to the motion that we accept the calendar, all aspects of the new calendar except for the early release days pending further discussion.
All of the early release days or just the 2 new early release days?
The 2 added early release days pending early
Okay, so basically, it's the calendar we got on the 8th, or whatever the first, the
And I
last
second
time we
that.
got. Okay, so we have a motion for an amendment and a second to essentially revert back to the calendar that Cynthia brought us a couple of weeks ago, without the addition of the January 13th early release day and the March 16th early release day. Right, those were the two new added ones?
Yes.
And everything else was the same? Okay.
And who did the second? I'm sorry.
Volley did.
Thank you.
Okay, so how this works, we vote on the amendment, and then if the amendment passes, the original motion is then amended, and we'll vote on that. If the amendment fails, then the original motion remains on the table. Okay? Any questions before we vote on the amendment? Great. All right, all those in favor of the amendment? Great, that's easy math. None opposed. All right, so the original motion is now amended to be consideration and approval of the second read of the 22-23 school calendar with the exception of the two added early release days. All right. Any other questions on that before we vote on the now amended motion? Great. All those in favor? Great, none opposed. All right, so for wrap-up information, so I think folks are interested in, like it doesn't have to be something super formal like a survey of all the teachers, but I know they all have leadership teams of teachers, right? So you guys could connect with those folks. A little bit more historical data around the early releases that we used to have that caused agita. And then I'm not sure what. You like that word? Yeah, it's my dad's favorite word. Any information around?
There was something about the late start, early start.
A survey of parents for the late start, early start, and also to see how many people would need the care and how much they would be able to pay.
Right.
I think we have it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thankfully, it's 9 o'clock and there's no new business on the agenda. Personnel, any resignations you want to share? Because Peter was sharing them up at the...
No, I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
All right.
Peter and I will chat.
Public comment? All right. Then I would take a motion to adjourn. Susanna and Jen, all those in favor? Thank you, guys.